Hey there.
Hello.
I see we have somebody in the waiting room. I don't know. I don't recognize the name. Do you?
I'm not seeing it. Let me see. I'm opening up. I'm not seeing any names. I don't see any name.
MSLWG. Let me see if I can ask that person who they are. View gallery. This is currently recording, but I have not begun yet to share it.
Okay.
So I will. But let me see if I can communicate with this person in the waiting room. Hi, who are you? Is that like a thing? Waiting room. MSLWG, comma, please. Now, I think I might type that up and save that as a message as we get others in the waiting room that we don't know. I'm going to add that each time I see somebody in the waiting room I don't recognize, I will ask them to identify themselves. If we don't get a response in a timely manner, I will remove them.
Okay.
I hope that's okay.
That sounds okay. They can watch it on
You know what? I'll add that to my little note. I will say this recording will be available for you to watch on social media later or something like that.
I see Debbie's joining us.
Hi, y'all.
Hey, Debbie.
I'm not going to come on the video. I'm not dressed.
Okay.
I just wanted to say, hey, that's all.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Debbie.
Yes.
I'm going to run this by you too, kind of a safer to ask permission, I guess, or whatever. People I don't recognize who are sitting in the waiting room, if I don't recognize their names, I will send them a note that says, please identify yourself. If I don't hear from them, I will add a note, and you can send it into all the waiting room participants will see this like in the chat, and it'll say this event will be shared to our social media. So you can watch it later.
That's
so if
a
they
great
don't get
thing.
in,
Yeah.
Is that okay?
I think that's
with
perfect.
You?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, this is our game.
Well, we have somebody in the waiting room whose name I don't recognize. And I know I have a list of people who I was told I would not know who would be joining us. Friends of friends have shared this link.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that those people.
You have all the league members.
I think.
Tell me the last name. I know
the name is, it's not a name. It's just their handle, I guess. And it's MSLWG.
No.
How about Jan Parsons?
No. Nope.
That name sounds familiar, though.
Yeah. That's true.
Well,
is Jan Parsons she, her? I'm fine with admitting that person. And if they misbehave, we can always kick them out.
Yes.
Okay.
I think maybe, I don't know.
We are being recorded, so I don't want to say anything more.
Yeah,
but,
sure. No, it's just that I was trying to figure out. So last time it was really just you let everyone in, right?
Yeah. Won't do that again.
And I'm trying to think, and I really do think it might have been off of Facebook, the live feed. I've really been thinking about this since it happened, a lot.
Yeah,
And I was
I have too.
wondering how that happened, but just been, if I come up with any ideas, I'll let you know.
I think there are people who look for keywords.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And also, depending on, because I don't use certain devices for certain things. So I was really curious about the link and how you can go different ways to get the link, you know what I'm saying, with social media.
Sure.
So because when on the flyer, when I was sharing it, 'cause I don't know how to share the flyer with the link, I guess. I don't know
Yeah.
how
Oh,
to
yeah.
do that. So to make sure that when I shared it on social media, I actually typed the link into the comment, not the comment, but in the post itself. So, it was kind of like, it made it easy, you know what I mean?
Right.
For people to just click there instead of, getting it the other way. So I don't know, been thinking about it.
Yeah.
Hey, people I recognize.
We've been
Yeah.
talking about people we don't recognize,
Yeah.
how to make sure they
Yeah.
don't invade our event today.
Looking forward to this, y'all, but I'm not going to show my live video. I'm not dressed. I'll talk to you guys later. Hey, Mary.
All right. The beauty of Zoom, you can go in your pajamas.
Exactly. And that's what I'm really going to enjoy this. I enjoyed last week's, by the way.
Yeah.
A lot. So.
We'll wait just a couple more minutes. I want to be respectful of Staci's time. So
Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and start to share this to our social media.
okay.
Should I
All
go
right.
ahead and do that as well now, Marty?
Yeah,
Okay.
that would be fine. I'm trying to.
I can figure it out.
You're
I'll
good at
share
that,
it.
Debbie.
Huh. Not really, Mary Lou.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I don't see how I can share it. It's all right. I'll share it afterwards. I know I'll figure that part out. Actually, I think once you share it on your social media, shouldn't the live feed just come up like in the recording once in the post itself? Does it work that way?
I'm sorry. I'm typing. What'd you say?
Oh, I was wondering, like when you share it on social media, the original post, shouldn't the recording come up in the post already once you've shared it? I've always wondered that.
I think so. Yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
I'll be curious. I'll go back and check that too.
Well, keeping in
Althea
mind that
Jenkins. Anyone recognize the name Althea Jenkins? Okay. They can sit there for just a minute while I do other things.
I always appreciate it when presenters, providers, facilitators keep in mind that not everybody is on social media and especially not on Facebook.
Right.
True. Well, let's go ahead and get started because I definitely want to be respectful of Staci's time. And on behalf of Georgia Women and those who stand with us and the League of Women Voters of Macon, I want to welcome everyone to the second course of our Lunch and Learn. We decided to provide this series to provide information about and get a better understanding of some of the legislation proposed by the Georgia General Assembly in hopes that our listeners and viewers will become more informed voters and advocates. Some housekeeping issues. The program is recorded and available for those who can't see it live or unable to gain entry. And if you have questions or wish to comment, either raise your hand or use the hand emoji, or you can put it in the chat and the host will unmute you. I think you can unmute yourself though, when you're identified. And please act with the utmost of respect. 2 weeks ago for our appetizer, we had a lively discussion entitled "What in the World is Critical Race Theory?" This week, we present our second course, "What's Wrong with Women's Rights?" We're fortunate to have as our speaker Staci Fox, President and CEO of Planned Parenthood Southeast and Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates. Staci's a UGA graduate, yay!
Go Dogs.
An alumna of both Leadership Atlanta and the Strategic Perspectives in Nonprofit Management program at Harvard Business School. She has many years of experience, I didn't want to tell Staci, as a healthcare educator, getting hands-on experience in every aspect of Planned Parenthood's mission. She's a champion for reproductive rights despite relentless attacks from both political and regulatory powers in state houses and on Capitol Hill. You may have seen her speak at press conferences, rallies, and on network and cable news as she advances the work of Planned Parenthood and the fight to protect reproductive rights and expand access to compassionate, non-judgmental healthcare. Thank you, Staci, for joining us.
Thanks, Lynn, for having me. You can hear me okay? Well, so great to be with y'all. As Lynn said, my name's Staci Fox, and I use she, her pronouns. And I have the honor and privilege of serving as the president and CEO of Planned Parenthood Southeast, which is our 501c3 organization, Planned Parenthood Southeast Advocates, which is our C4 organization. And we also have a PAC here in Georgia called Vote Choice. And we work across the really easy, progressive, well-funded states of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. Which feels less and less funny to say these days, but I'm really honored to be with y'all. And not only did I attend Georgia, I'm a Georgia native, so I'm from right down the road from y'all. I'm from Warner Robins. So Macon was the big city that I went to when I was in high school. And look at me now living in Atlanta. So, but I'm excited to be with y'all. I wish I had better news to share today. I wish we were talking under better circumstances. And so I know it might feel a little doom and gloom as I talk today. So I just wanted to say that up front because it's going to be a hard year for all of us. But we are resilient and we are strong, and we will get up the next day and take care of each other. I love the analogy of a stagnated note in music where multiple voices or instruments are holding a note, and when somebody takes a breath, someone else is there, and then, you know, they switch places. So that's what we'll continue to do for each other despite what's ahead this year. And there was something else on that you said that I wanted to mention, but it might come to mind as I share today. And I definitely want to have a dialogue. So questions, things that come up, just feel free to let me know. Oh, other thing is, no shame. I've been here 25 years at Planned Parenthood. Last year celebrated 25 years, which as of December last year, when I turned 50, is now half of my life at Planned Parenthood. So I've been here a minute, done most of the jobs, you know, whether in hurricane or, you know, through protesters. So I'm proud to be here. So let me just give you a quick lay of the land where things stand. And I'm probably telling you a lot of things you already know, but maybe there's some things that you didn't, or just as a refresher, so you could share with others. I think everyone probably remembers 2019. I will never forget 2019 here in Georgia, because not only here in Georgia, but in Alabama and Mississippi, we were also fighting all out abortion bans. That our opposition likes to call heartbeat bills or the Women's Safety Act, but we want to call them for what they are, all out abortion bills, abortion ban bills. And in 2019, the first state actually to take action was Mississippi, which is really one of those states that's been a testing ground for abortion restrictions for decades now. And let's just be honest with each other, abortion is already hard to access. The laws that are in place and that have been coming at us for the last 10, 15 years have created a number of restrictions. Just for example, in our Mobile, Alabama Health Center, over half of our patients drive over 100 miles to get to the clinic for care. And they have to do that twice because our legislatures often don't trust women to make decisions on their own and mandate counseling and waiting periods and all kinds of things. So in 2019, Mississippi was the first to pass a 6-week abortion ban. As y'all know, most of us who have had or still have a uterus, 6 weeks is well before most people will even know they're pregnant. And just the year before, Mississippi had passed the 15-week ban, which we all well know about, and I'll talk a little bit about when we get to the Supreme Court. But Mississippi passed a 6-week ban, and then Georgia got involved, which I have to tell y'all, I've done a lot of thinking about that year here in Georgia. It was a surprise to me that we saw HB 481 come up in Georgia, which was quickly replicated in Alabama. But I think y'all may remember politically what was happening that year is Speaker Ralston was also under attack by his party. And sometimes my tinfoil hat makes me feel like maybe that was on purpose. Because Ralston, if you follow Georgia politics, Speaker Ralston doesn't have a lot of patience for shenanigans on the floor of the House. And year after year had been our stalwart to prevent these types of attacks from coming to the floor. We hadn't seen an attack against abortion come to the floor since 2012 in Georgia, and that was a 20-week ban. So that was the year that the Republican Party was coming after Ralston, and he felt really insecure. And so HB 481 gained momentum, and some of y'all may have joined us under the dome. I've never seen so much estrogen under the dome as I did that year, and it was beautiful. It might have been dressed up as a handmaid. It had protest signs. It showed up in all kinds of gender identities. And let me tell you, the Capitol Police were afraid and they showed up too. I've never seen so many Capitol Police, and now we have a lovely, $5 million fence around the General Assembly, in case you haven't visited or hadn't heard what was going on down the street here. But unfortunately, 41 passed and the governor signed it into law, although the governor did take a beat. It wasn't immediately that the governor signed that bill into law. And you probably remember too, there was a lot of pushback from the film and entertainment industry here in Georgia, which is a $9 billion industry here in Georgia. Some people call us Y'allywood for that reason. I don't know about y'all in Macon, but I figure with all those historic buildings, especially here in Atlanta, there's always some film, some movie, something being filmed because of the tax credit. But we didn't see the pushback we saw similar to RFRA. There certainly wasn't a chamber-led effort where all these businesses came out. It was a slow trickle, and obviously our opposition doesn't respond well to what they believe are carpetbaggers. Although the film industry employs thousands of Georgians, certainly these are not people coming in from out of the state. But HB 41 passed into law, and we certainly went to court immediately, as we promised Governor Kemp we would, and went to court on all 3 bans in that year. And I don't think I've ever done so much media in my life. We were, sitting in war rooms and hotel rooms with phones propped up and computers, and it was just sort of a point and shoot, to be honest. But people were following this all over the globe, really, to be honest. And that led us to here we are today. So let me catch you up on 481 first. 481 is stalled in court waiting on the Supreme Court. It is not taken effect, which I will tell you, in 2019, I had one of those, middle of the night or in the shower. I can't remember when it happened, but those quiet moments you get where I thought, our patients have got to hear from us. I mean, y'all know the news gets really confusing for people. And abortion ban as a headline was really scary to me. I thought there got to be people who are pregnant or might get pregnant out there who might think abortion's already not available. So we really got focused on our patients and then pivoted to really focus on shame and stigma, because my opinion, We are here because we have allowed shame and stigma to exist around our bodies as sexual, around abortion, because we don't talk about it. And if you don't know, 1 in 4 people who can get pregnant will have an abortion by the time they turn 45 in this country. 1 in 4. That's a lot of people who have abortions, and a lot of people who know people have had abortions, but we don't talk about. We're very othering, and even Planned Parenthood has been complicit in that over the years. So the federal district judge in the HB 481 case, which is Sister Song v. Kemp, and if you don't know Sister Song, get to know them. They're one of the very first reproductive justice organizations founded right here in Georgia by a woman named Monica Simpson. Reproductive justice organizations, in case you don't know, are founded by and for women of color and are doing brilliant work in our communities all over the country, specifically a lot of those organizations based here in the South. So 481 is waiting on the Supreme Court, and as are we. Late June, early July, we expect to hear from the Supreme Court. And I don't know if you listened to the oral arguments in December. I know I did. I was in Mississippi, actually, in a hotel conference room listening with all kinds of people. And it was grating to hear Justice Coney Barrett's voice Justice Thomas, speaking up, which we very rarely hear from him. And I think the bottom line was very clear to us that that is not going to go in our favor. And I wish I had different news, but y'all know that our previous administration appointed 3 new justices to this court. And even with Breyer's retirement, that does not change the numbers. I think we are going to lose this vote by 6. And I think I know two things can happen here. One is that the court could uphold Roe, but support the 15-week ban. So basically back up the gestational age limit on abortion access to 15 weeks. And what that does is open the door, the floodgates really, for all kinds of other barriers that have we've been able to hold back post the Planned Parenthood v. Casey case. You saw this happen in the whole women's case out of Texas. They are laws we call TRAP laws, targeted regulation of abortion provider laws. They are sort of the kitchen sink. They have building requirements. They have hospital admitting requirements. They have educational requirements and counseling requirements and all kinds of things. So it will open that floodgate. And the other is the very worst that could happen, and I think we all are bracing for that in the movement, is a full, complete overturn of Roe. And let me just step back and tell you a little bit about the state of Mississippi. I don't know if anybody's from Mississippi or has lived in Mississippi, but things are not good in the state of Mississippi. And the state actually argues in this case, in the Jackson Women's v. Dobbs case, that Mississippi, that the need to protect Roe doesn't exist anymore because of all the advances in gender equality. That is actually an argument of the state. In the state, the only state in this country that does not even have an equal pay law on the books. That's where things stand in the state of Mississippi. So late June, early July is going to be hard. And just so you know, we will probably have about 20 to 25 days before that law goes into effect. And as you can imagine, on the back end, we are working hard to prepare for what that means. If we lose Roe completely, up to 26 states in this country will not be able to provide access to safe and legal abortion. And the movement, we are calling states that will not be able to provide abortion referral states, and those states where patients can go, haven states. And here in the South, our closest haven state may be North Carolina, given what's happened in Florida right now. Lynn, did you have a quick question?
I just wanted to say, how many states was that?
26. And you can imagine what states they are, right? I mean, abortion's going to hold on the East Coast, the Northeast Coast, on the West Coast, and a little bit in the Midwest. But things are going to get really hard in the South. And we're watching states like Florida and Arizona enact 15-week bans as we speak, including all other kinds of crazy things coming out of Florida. Florida is where I started my Planned Parenthood career, so I understand that crazy political landscape as well. So that is what's to come. And I think it feels scary and daunting, and as if there is nothing left to do. And what I would tell you is that is not the case. Yes, the Supreme Court will rule, and yes, it is possible that we lose access in the state of Georgia. But I want to talk from the political lens for just a minute and tell you that I hope you know that there is a tiny light at the end of this tunnel in Georgia. Now, in our other two states, in Alabama and Mississippi, if we lose access to abortion care, it will never come back, because both of those states have enacted constitutional amendments that are what we call trigger laws. If Roe is overturned, then Mississippi and Alabama have already drawn that line in the sand, and abortion will never be available again, unless the Constitution is amended, and I don't see that happening in my lifetime. But there is a chance in Georgia. And I probably don't have to spell it out to y'all, but this is why we say elections matter, right? Why the top of the ticket is going to be so important this year, both from the governor's perspective and the attorney general's perspective. And then in 2 years, how important the down ballot races are going to be. There is a path to walking back this ban, but it is going to take all of us locked arms together to do the political work to get every voter voting and every vote counted. And I know y'all are working on that every day in lockstep with us and tons of other organizations out there. The other thing, a couple of things I want to mention too, just to kind of level set, and then I definitely want to open this up and have a dialogue with y'all. A couple of things I want to tell you about in Georgia, in case you don't know. There are what we call fake clinics all throughout the state. There are over 100 of them, sometimes called crisis pregnancy centers, that have a $2 million budget line item that fund them in the state of Georgia. You might not have known that, but that was passed by the General Assembly. These are clinics, well, I don't even know that I would use that word. I think fake is the best word to use, because they are not regulated. They are not staffed by licensed providers, and they use deception to trick people who are pregnant into prolonging their decision, which narrows their ability to make informed decisions about pregnancy. So that's going on in the state of Georgia while we're still taxing menstrual hygiene products. I don't know if y'all know about making periods easier, but oh my goodness, I love following them on Instagram. I think that's the coolest thing happening. We have period pantries in our health centers as well. But we're taxing menstrual hygiene products over half, and it's growing rapidly. Over half of the counties in Georgia do not have access to OBGYNs. And you probably have heard that we have one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country. It's hard to measure apples to apples because not every state measures it nor measures it the same. But what I can tell you is that Black women who want to be pregnant are dying at 3 times the rate of their white sisters who want to be pregnant in this state. And those are things that are easy to remedy. The CDC, that also exists here in the state, but sometimes we ignore science, says that this is preventable. 3 out of 5 pregnancy-related deaths are preventable. We are fighting in the General Assembly, SB 533, I don't know, I was just talking about it last night, 338, is working to expand postpartum coverage to 12 months. We fought last year to get it from 3 to 6 months. In 2019, we finally unshackled people having babies in our criminal justice system. Up until 2019, if someone was having a baby in our criminal justice system, they were shackled during labor and delivery. Y'all, you know, we haven't expanded Medicaid. Our rural hospitals are closing left and right. And access is dwindling, whether it's about abortion or anything else, fast. So our job is really to step in here. And I don't have to tell y'all about the important work around elections, but let me just add on to that, because I don't want to leave y'all today in a gloomy state. I'm lucky that our brand color is pink. It just sort of forces you to smile on days when it's hard, because it is going to be a hard year, I think, for us in this space. But, you know, I think it's important to lean into the other access issues that are happening in this country, and specifically here in Georgia around sexual and reproductive health. There are nearly 1 million people in need of publicly funded contraception in the state, and only about 130,000 are getting access through Title X funds. We've got to get contraceptive access out there, ACA-like contraceptive access. I can tell you, I have a health center just a couple blocks from my house, and thanks to a generous donation from one of the Cox family foundations, we were able to provide ACA-like access to birth control. And you know what happened? When we took that financial barrier away, our long-acting reversible contraception, y'all might know them as IUDs, IUCs, implants, they flew off the shelf because they're expensive. They cost us $1,000 a piece to buy. And if you are a self-pay patient, you can imagine how expensive that would be. But when we cut that cost down to $20, when people who wanted to prevent pregnancy got to make their own decisions, they were looking to prevent pregnancy long-term. So we need to get that out there. We also have to get really comfortable with talking about self-managed abortion, because we are going to go back there and figure out how to help support people who are facing that situation. Because I think we're assuming a lot about people will travel, and what we're seeing after SB 8 in Texas is that is not necessarily the case. We don't know how they will travel. We don't know if they will travel. So we have to be prepared for that. And the last thing, well, second to last thing I'll say is we have to be prepared, and we have to get creative. And I know because of our very thin corpus callosums as people who identify as women, our brains do that naturally. So we're going to have to band together and do that. And the last thing I would say that came out of 2019 for me is really the shame and stigma piece. And I go back to the 1 in 4. We've got to tell our story. We have to start talking about abortion. I had an abortion my freshman year at the University of Georgia. I had never had sex. No one talked to me about sex. P.S. If you don't talk to your kids about sex, they'll get paid to talk about sex, like me. But I got pregnant, and I didn't want to be. And I was a freshman in college, and I had no one to talk about. So I drove to Atlanta from Warner Robins one day and had an abortion and drove home, and then went back to school. And I don't regret my decision. I'm thankful that those people were there to take care of me and provide non-judgmental care. I didn't come to Planned Parenthood. Planned Parenthood wasn't providing care at that time, but one of our independent partners were. So we have to talk about it. And because they're 1 in 4, I know that on this call, I'm not the only one. And so you don't have to get on a call like this to tell your story, but tell your sister, tell your daughter, tell your niece. I'm that aunt, I'm like sex camp with Aunt Staci, I'm going to talk about all the things with them. So be that person in your circles, because that's what's going to change everything. That's how we get our power back. We've given up our power by allowing other people to create this narrative. So Lynn, I'm going to stop there, and I'd love to talk to y'all, answer your questions, see what's on your mind.
Are there any groups in any of the states, I'm thinking of Texas and maybe for the future for Georgia, that provide transportation to people? I know one of the issues in Texas, I heard people saying, well, even if I had a private plane to go to California, I couldn't go because I have kids at home that need to be cared for. Are there any organizations that are doing that?
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that, Lynn. Absolutely. They're called abortion funds, and there is an organization called the National Network of Abortion Funds, and you can find them all over. Here in Georgia, ARC Southeast Abortion Resource Center, they go by ARC Southeast, is our fund, and they are funding and helping people who can get pregnant all over the South. In Texas, there are a ton of funds like the Lilith Fund and lots of others that are helping people with travel and childcare and the cost of an abortion if needed. A lot of providers like us at Planned Parenthood and independent clinics have funds available to help reduce the cost for the patient. And then we partner with these funds to help with the wraparound costs for patients. I remember being in federal court in Alabama. One of my first things I did here at Planned Parenthood Southeast 9 years ago, and the state said that it would be okay if a woman couldn't get an abortion in Alabama and she drove to the city that's the neighbor city to Columbus, Georgia, and there's literally a pedestrian bridge. So if she drove, parked her car, walked across the pedestrian bridge, got herself to the clinic in Columbus, did the reverse and got home in a day, that would not be a burden. So it is our job to help reduce that burden for those patients, because we know there are already so many.
Do you know if there are any plans to add bounties to Georgia's bills like Texas has?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Lynn. I know you had asked me to mention that. We haven't seen an SB 8 copycat moving in Georgia. What's moving right now is SB 456. It was SB 351. It's been amended. You know, the antis love to amend a bill and say that, you know, they're meeting us in the middle. But this is really related to medication abortion access and prohibiting telemedicine access, which has been a great access point, especially during COVID, but also does way more than that. It criminalizes doctors, it mandates ultrasounds. It's a pretty nasty bill. Speaker Ralston has said even before session that he has no time for this and he is not going to bring this to the floor. The bill has passed out of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee. We had I don't know, I guess you could call it a hearing a couple of weeks ago, but they wouldn't even listen to the doctors that came to testify. They gave them 30 seconds to speak. It was certainly no demonstration in democracy, but I think it's headed to the Senate floor. You know, we heard this week and then it, you know, got postponed. I know tomorrow is a big day in our progressive world as we're looking to protect, you know, students to play sports. That bill is going to the floor of the Senate tomorrow. But I honestly, I mean, I think we're all going to come for Ralston. I know he's not running for re-election, but thanks, Jan, for joining us. But we're going to hold him accountable for what he said, which is that he's not going to bring this bill to the floor. So I think I don't expect to see a copycat, you know, crossovers the 15th, and things are pretty much in motion at this point.
Well, that's good news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think our wins where we can find them.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
I have a question too,
Yeah.
if you don't mind me jumping in. I know Lynn and I had talked about this before. First of all, thank you for sharing all your information and your story as well. So in Michigan, the GOP Attorney General candidates have all said that they've all weighed in on the Griswold versus Connecticut. Apparently, they all think that contraception in marriage is a bad idea somehow, and I'm not trying to just throw gasoline on the fire, but my question is, how do they justify this? And don't just say, oh, they want us all barefoot and pregnant. I know that you want more. We want more from you for that answer. They don't want there to be contraceptive practices in marriage, and they don't want anyone to have an abortion. How do people justify their thought process here? I just don't get it.
Well, I share your confusion. And I think a few things I would say. One is the justification that comes out of their mouth is safety. You know, they're all worried about safety of women, right? As if we can't make our own decisions. But I think bottom line, it's all about power. And I think two things are going on here. One is access to bodily autonomy, whether it's about abortion or birth control or anything else, is the last cannon fodder for them in the elections. They have nothing else to throw to their base about this, you know, sanctity of life or their safety of marriage and protecting women. If they lose Roe, it's going to be interesting for them in elections. They've got nothing to talk about at church anymore. They don't have a real bottom base to lean on. And I think that's what they've been doing. They've been holding on to this because it's political power that gets people out to vote. And I think the other thing is what we're seeing as our electorate and our electeds change faces is this feels like the drowning, you know, voices of the white male patriarchy to me, which sounds great. I think they're willing to do anything and say anything. And they have think tanks, as you know, that prepare and write these bills for them. Josh Edmondson, who is, our Georgia Right to Life leader here. My mama said, don't say anything if you can't say anything nice. So that's all I'll say. But, I think that's the other thing, is that they're losing power. And so they're trying to control us, whether it's through redistricting or through bodily autonomy. This is all about control, so they don't lose power. And I think it's because it's one of the things that rallies their base and allows them to cross what we would think would be uncrossable lines, so they can talk about electoral issues in places like churches.
I hadn't thought about that, but I see that now. Yeah.
I can see that too.
Yeah. Those of us born and bred here in the South know that is, they don't want us voting on Sundays because they don't want, either our Black friends to go to church, to go to the polls after church. And, but they certainly don't mind talking about these issues in church.
Well, the 1 in 4 statistic was something that I mentioned to my representative when they were voting for this. And I said, we had a very lengthy email chat back and forth. And finally, at the end, I said, I will not bother you anymore about this anymore. But when you go to church on Sunday, I want you to look and see that which 1 in 4 of the women who are sitting there have had abortions, because they have. They just won't tell you.
Right. And what's going to happen when they can't access it safely?
Well, his group is probably wealthy enough that they can go somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Let's be honest, whether it's the vote or bodily autonomy or trans attacks, these aren't about them. They are privileged and will always get health care and access they need. These are about Black and brown bodies. These are about our bodies that live in poverty. These are about our bodies who already don't have voice and power. That's because they're afraid of losing power. They don't want power to sit somewhere else. Oh, I know, y'all, I sound so upbeat. I wish, I will tell you this. One of the things that we say at Planned Parenthood, and I've had a couple of experiences of that in my career, is that these doors stay open no matter what. And that's true. We're not going anywhere. Planned Parenthood's been here for over 100 years. Our doors are going to stay open. If we can't provide abortion, we're going to do everything else. And I will tell you, 2 times that I lived that motto was one after, you might remember, a shooting at a Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs over Thanksgiving. Monday morning, every one of our staff at Planned Parenthood Southeast showed up. And the other day was the day after Election Day in 2016. I don't know where y'all were and what y'all were doing, but I was up crying, and I had a legal pad, and I was making, because my partner also works in a nonprofit space, and I was making 2 lists. What's everything we have to cancel and save at home, and what's everything we have to stop and cut back and start doing at work so that we can stay here and stay in our jobs. And that next day, everybody showed up to work. We might not have looked great. Our eyes were a little puffy. We were a little tired, but we showed up. So, and that's going to happen in June or July too, I guarantee you.
Staci, I have a question that maybe,
Mary Liz, go ahead.
yeah, very simplistic question, really. If Roe is overturned and abortion really isn't easily accessible, and let's say we have to go to North Carolina, how do you access that in North Carolina, so that you don't end up in some clinic that has another agenda?
Yeah.
How do you, where do you make that connection?
That's such a good question, Mary Lee. We're working on that. So we're building out regional networks so that we will be able to guide patients to the right places. And those places that will be haven states are already working to staff up, build new buildings, grow capacity so that they can see these patients that will be coming their way. So we have just hired a patient navigator whose sole job that we are working to prepare now is to take care of those patients who call us. for childcare and transportation and lodging and actual healthcare. And I'm sure we will staff that up more as needed. So we're all doing those things across the country, depending on where we live. We're either working to get ready to accept those patients and take good care of them, or working to make sure that we can help those patients navigate this very complex and confusing system. Is that helpful, Mary Lou? Was that what you were asking?
It is helpful. And do you really foresee that Roe's going to be overturned? Is that pretty clear?
I think if you listen to the oral arguments, I mean, goodness, Justice Roberts was trying everything he could do to argue for the 15-week ban, but the rest of them had no time for it whatsoever. And, you know, we know why that, I mean, that's why Coney Barrett was put on this court. I mean, that's what she was trained to do her entire life, was for this moment. So this is their chance. And if they don't do it, I mean, obviously we're in a different administration, but there's no way you know who could get back on a ticket if they don't do it, I think.
Yeah.
Carolyn had a question.
Carolyn, did you have a question?
Well, just, talking just about the issue of married people not being able to access birth control. There's a joke that if men had to have children, there would be absolutely no question about this. And which brings to mind something that won't work, of course, but if wives refused to have sex with their husbands, that puts the burden on them. And the husbands lose something. But women like to have sex too, so.
Right. Well, Carolyn, maybe what we need is like a vibrator campaign, so we can just send everybody a vibrator, and then they can do that. I know, lots of creative things have been tried too. There was a state representative, Kendrick, tried to or introduced a bill in 2019 requiring partner consent for vasectomy. I mean, what's the difference, right? I mean, if that's the case, then that should also be the case. I also think we may end up back in our beginnings, where, remember, I mean, when Planned Parenthood was founded, we still had the Comstock laws in place, and it was illegal to even give information about birth control. So I always say, listen, I'm going to go to jail if it's something we can help people for, or raise money about. Maybe that's where we get to. I'm planning to go out on the streets and start handing out Plan B for free when the day we hear from the Supreme Court. I just think we're going to have to get creative, and I love that idea, Carolyn, and I'll back you up with a national masturbation and vibrator campaign.
Okay. Maybe there is a chance.
Yeah, my Southern mother would be horrified. Y'all don't know this, but my parents are really conservative. I think my mom prays every day I'll get a new job. That hasn't really worked in 25 days. I mean, 25 years, obviously, but bless her heart.
There are a few nurses on this panel, and I know some of us are old enough to remember pre-Roe v. Wade days and the things that women did to induce abortions. Because they had no access, no legal access. Do you think we're headed to that? Do you think
we're already there? I mean, it's already happening. I think the good news is there is more access to more effective means of terminating pregnancy. There is pretty easy, I mean, I wouldn't say pretty easily, but there is access to one of the drugs related to medication abortion now. And I think that's one of the things that we're all going to have to get comfortable with, whether it's, privately in our own lives, where we share information about what self-managed abortion looks like, or, as providers, helping patients navigate that. So, we know it's already happening. I mean, I know those of y'all that have been in healthcare could probably say the same, but I know in my 25 years, even with some version of safe and legal abortion, women will still stare death in the face if they want to terminate a pregnancy. I mean, they become very desperate, and they do horrific things that we've seen happen. So I think if there's any good there, is that we can be prepared to help those patients be safe. Carrie,
How do you
thanks
get
for
that
joining.
information? How do you get that information to people who may not have easy access to that kind of information?
That's a great question,
in rural
Kristen.
areas, or, kids in high school, or how do you get them that information?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to become our own sort of network, of sort of person to person sharing that access if someone can't get it themselves. I mean, I know I started out as a health educator. We're not going to be able to be in schools talking about this, but we're going to know what websites, or maybe we get the medication ourselves and share it with someone else if that becomes an issue. But there will be, and there already is, lots of information out there, because we've been preparing for this internationally. There's an organization called Women on Waves who've been preparing for this and dealing with this situation internationally for years. So I know that will happen here as well. I think, the big organizations like ours are going to have to work to, practice within the law, right? So that we can stay open. And, if there's some sort of subvergence that needs to happen, it is already happening. I can tell you there's trainings already happening, information that's already being shared. It will be accessible. We're just going to have to do the old school with our new devices, call your best girlfriend, keep calling. It's like the Jane Network. If you haven't seen that great documentary about the Jane Network in Chicago, pre-Roe, these are a group of women who helped other people access abortion. They learned how to provide abortion care themselves. And we're doing it in apartments and picking up women in taxis, and did it all under the, sort of secret cover. And those of us who care deeply about that are not going to be beside, doing that.
And where are the men who are really, really pro-choice? Are they?
Where are they?
Yeah, I mean, because there are men who are very pro-choice, who don't want their wives or their girlfriends to have to go through a dangerous pregnancy, or any, if they both have decided they aren't ready to have children, if they ever will be. Yeah, I had a client whose wife, maybe you all can tell me, there was a genetic, some sort of genetic marker that if they both had it, the odds are that any child they had would have this very horrific disorder or disability. So they got pregnant once and had a baby, and did the genetic testing, and that baby missed it. And then the second time the baby was found, when the wife was pregnant, he or she was guaranteed to have this. They were very afraid that abortion would be outlawed. Anyway, they terminated the pregnancy. And so there are fathers like this who are, yes, this is the right thing. This is our choice. So where are these men?
They're out there. I don't know if you saw Senator Gary Peters tell his very similar story, very publicly last year, and again recently as we were facing the Supreme Court decision. They're out there. We've just got to get them, we've got to help amplify them. And I think we all do that by making it more comfortable and safe for everybody, because even we aren't comfortable and safe talking about it. So we have to make it comfortable and safe. And I can tell you, Senator Peters, his donations shot through the roof after that happened, and the support for him was unparalleled. And that's what people who feel uncomfortable need to feel, whatever that support looks like. Carolyn, did you have another question? Your hand just, okay.
Okay.
No, that's okay. No, I just wanted to check in.
Lower hand.
Jumping in.
I have a question. How do the legislators propose to police no contraception in marriage, telemedicine, for instance? How do they plan to do that? Is that attached to the bills?
It's not. They don't think through those things. But I guess we can give Governor Kemp a lab coat, and he can just storm into exam rooms all over the country. All of the state, sorry.
I mean, I have visions of police standing and looking in your bedroom windows and.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think the marriage thing is so interesting because, y'all know contraception wasn't even legal for unmarried folks until, right before Roe. So It's not so long ago, that all this was true.
Yeah, we've taken a giant step backwards in so many areas.
I know, and they're all connected. They really, really are. Well, I'm so grateful that y'all are staying abreast of the issues by doing things like this, and I hope that you'll, stay tuned with us or other organizations in this space about what's happening, and talk to others about it. I will tell you that based on the research that we've done, only about 36% of Americans believe that Roe is at risk. Only 36%. So a lot of people don't even think this is real. So I think it's going to be a shockwave this summer. And I think those of us who have sat with it for a minute and feel more ready for it are going to have to hold space for those who aren't, and be working in the background to move more quickly, because it's going to take a minute for those that aren't prepared mentally to get there with us. And, if you didn't think abortion was on the ballot this fall, it certainly is now.
Mm.
I have another, I guess, question / comment. A lot of your statements have been, we're going to have to do this, and we're going to have to band together, and we're going to I like concrete tasks. Have you got any suggestions for calls we need to make, who we need to call, what we need to say, who we need to write? Because like you said, there'll be a shock wave. Well, let's prevent it from being a shock. Let's prepare people, and how best to do that is my question.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I would go back to the, talking to friends and family about what could happen. And then I think, Crystal, to your question about where can we point people for information, and Lynn, your question about funds, we can share the National Network of Abortion Funds. I think it's ineedanabortion.org. There are a number of websites that can point to providers. Obviously staying in touch with those organizations that have got their finger on the pulse of what's happening. But I think, most people aren't as wonky as we are and are going to go back and listen to the arguments of the Jehu v. Dobbs case. But I think if you have, or I can tell you if you don't want to, that it is so clear based on that this is what's going to happen, and this is what the court has been prepared to do. And any constitutional lawyer, Tanya Washington is a great one out of Georgia State, Eric Siegel, Segall, he's active on Twitter, constitutional lawyer. They're both at Georgia State. Really stay atop this issue. And these are, people who are just looking at the Supreme Court for information. So I think following the experts are things that we have to do, and telling our stories. And then, supporting the places where we feel passionate, whether it's like the contraceptive care or abortion care where it's happening, or abortion funds. But I think the more we talk about this is how we get our power back. And then we've got to, y'all know we've got a big cycle this fall. I cannot wait. Our ticket is so exciting. We've got an exciting attorney general candidate, an exciting gubernatorial candidate, exciting rest of the top of the ticket. And, lots of House seats are, and Senate seats are changing because of redistricting and people changing races. So, I think we just got to plug in where we can. Was that helpful? Did that feel concrete?
Yes, I was just trying to jot down.
You said someone to call right now. Call a friend.
You said Siegel, S-E.
Yeah, Eric Siegel, Segall. You'll find him on Twitter.
And the other was
Tanya
Washington.
Tanya Washington.
Got it. Thank you.
We don't know how long they're going to have jobs with this completely politicized Board of Regents.
Yes, another issue, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I had recently read about Marjorie Dannenfelser, and she's she's the president of the Susan B. Anthony list.
Oh. Mm.
And how this has been her life's work to get Roe overturned.
Yeah. Don't be fooled by the name of the organization.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think I would just say, especially for myself as a cisgender white female leader, our job is having been in this work for 50 years, I think 50, alive for 50, in this work for 25, feels like 50.
Feels like 50.
Our job is to be brush clearers, and I mean, I feel like my job is to make space for our young leaders of color, and make sure they get the mic. It's not about us anymore. They're defining our future. And honestly, if we would get out of the way, they're going to save us from ourselves. So
Absolutely.
I think that's part of our job too, is really helping build the pipeline of leaders, whether it's in movement space or political spaces. That is our job. And I think as, white leaders, we have to, I have to lift up the fact that, these attacks are about Black and brown bodies, and we've got to use our privilege and our place to amplify that. Well, Lynn, it was so good to be with y'all today. I wish we've got a big party tonight, a fundraiser. So I'm gonna have something to lift me up tonight. I hope y'all will find something to lift your spirits. Stay involved, stay in touch. I'm easy to find on social media. But thank y'all for what you're doing down there. And let us know how we can help and be partners.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out to come and speak with us. We know we have a lot of work to do, and we have to do it for our daughters and our granddaughters and all the future generations of women.
That's right. And as we know in the South, we're going to do it one day at a time. This takes a while to turn the ship.
Yeah.
Staci, could I say one more thing?
Please do, Mary Lou.
You're talking about, I'm thinking of my grandchildren. I have a lot, and many of them are in their 20s and 30s. And this isn't on their radar.
Right.
They're real involved with global warming. They're real involved with poverty issues. You mentioned abortion is kind of, oh yeah, you're right. But it's just not an issue for them. And whereas for my generation, I remember when you didn't have abortion, and I knew stories about what happened. Yep. It's like they've not experienced that, and they just, again, this is my own personal family, and so I can't speak, but I'm not sure that younger generation is there to pick this up right now. I think it's still going to be us.
I think you're right, Mary Lou.
For right now.
Yeah, your grandkids are not unique. It's true all over. They also didn't experience a life without birth control. Y'all know what that looks like. So this doesn't feel like it's going to affect them. And I will tell you too, the anti-choice movement is getting young. They've, the faces are changing, which that has only happened in the last couple of years. I mean, most times when I see protesters, they're old white dudes. I'm like, don't you have something else to do today that's more important? I think we can't assume that, but I do think we have to make way for those that are. And I can tell you tonight, I get to see my congresswoman who used to work with me at Planned Parenthood, Congresswoman Nikema Williams, who replaced my Congressman John Lewis, who she and her whole class, including our two great senators, Senator Ossoff's a good friend of mine. I was at his wedding, and I'll see Senator Warnock at church on Friday and talk to him often, who, if y'all don't know, he leads with the fact that he's a pro-choice pastor. Our job is to amplify and, them so they can do the work. They're doing
maybe we just need more publicity. These other big, there's a lot of big topics out there that everybody's dealing with. Yeah. And race is a huge topic. Yeah. Global warming is a huge topic. And I just feel like this issue has fallen to the back burner. Yeah. So maybe we just need more attention to it, more talking about it.
I think that I'll tell you, Mary Lou, one of the things that I see is that there's a real reticence, even in movement space, to lock arms around the abortion fight. But I can tell you, based on research, there's a great book called Drawdown that talks about the scientifically researched 100 things we could do to walk back climate change. And number 7 and 8 are about women and girls. One's about contraception and one's about microloans. And the researcher, who happens to be here in Atlanta, that was part of that work, says if they had combined those two and just said, amplifying women and girls, it would be the number one thing that would roll back climate change based on science and research. but the climate change world isn't willing to talk about that, you know, and so,
Right.
but there's this group of young, great women, Drawdown, All You Can Save, that are doing this intersectional work. And the more we can amplify that, I think the better.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you're right. And you know, we have a history in this country. We eventually get it right. But the word is eventually.
Yeah, this takes a minute. It's got to swing.
It's a long, long slug to get where you want to go. Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is we're often too nice. We're not the loudest voices in the room. We're polite and don't want to be in conflict with others. So
Yeah.
We can
We
do
need to-
both. I'm a Southerner. I know how to be nice and polite and talk about abortion and ask for money. So
yeah,
we can
exactly.
do, we can do all of those hard things.
but we're not the loudest in the room.
Well, I was a cheerleader. I can be loud.
I'm just thinking
I
of
was
the
a
bully.
pageant queen. I was all those things you wouldn't expect.
Well, I'm just thinking of the bullies at the school board meetings and
I
things like
hear
that.
you.
They're just the loudest people in the room. And
That's
anyway,
true.
okay, all
Yeah.
right. Anyone
Well, so
else?
good to be with y'all. Stay in touch. I've got to jump to a call with a
All
funder,
right.
but thank
Yeah.
y'all so much.
Thank you for being
Thank
here.
you very much.
Thank you so much.
I just wanted to let you all know about our next Lunch and Learn, which is going to be on March the 9th at noon. And we're going to be talking about constitutional carry. And we have speakers from Moms Demand Action who will be talking about guns. Hope you'll be able to join us. You'll get more information in the next few days.
These are such depressing.
Yeah, I know.
It may be depressing, but it's the conversations we need to be having.
Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Yeah.
guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
Hi, Debbie.
And please know that this is being shared to our YouTube, Georgia Women's YouTube page. I believe it's being shared to the League of Women Voters Facebook page, and in a convoluted way to Georgia Women's Facebook page as well. So please share the links for anyone who couldn't make it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.